All right, well, welcome everybody. Glad you could come. And this is Carolina Connection. And the purpose of this group meeting every time is to help professors change the world. So just means a lot that you all could take time out to be with each other like this. And my name is Shane Hartley. I'm your host. I'm on staff with Faculty Commons, which is a Cru ministry, and I'm down in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it's just a pleasure to get to connect with you all and allow you to hear from each other during this time too. So sort of an overview of what we're going to do is I have a few announcements at first in the meeting, and then we're going to have a little devotional time in the Word. We're going to look at the story of King Asa. And then for the heart of our time, we're going to get to hear from Twyla Davis up at Bladen Community College. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Twyla. So some quick announcements for you is that if you are not familiar with meettheprof.com, there's a website for Christian faculty where you can put some of your story online for students to find you. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's pretty easy to set up, and students can go on and search by state or even by university to find a professor that they know. When I was an undergrad at Florida State, I didn't have any professors that I knew were Christian until my senior year. It made all the difference. And so students can search through here, find one that they're interested in knowing. Like here is Abel down in South Carolina at Clemson University. They can click and see. It's just some general information about him. Here are some fun questions of his favorite quotes, hobbies, favorite movies, and then he can include a link of his testimony here. So this wasn't a good example for the testimony because he has a short one. He talks about my alma mater, Florida State. If I pick Carl, like Carbon Electrical Engineering, you'll see at the top of his page with a short testimony of how God has brought him to Christ. We heard about students coming and finding their teachers on here and even selecting some of their classes based on who they can find on meettheprof.com. So if you're interested in putting your profile on there, you can go on and it walks you through. You can always email me if you have any questions how to do that. And the second announcement is if any of you have any trips going on this summer and you would be willing to connect with some Cru staff in the area, especially if you're going overseas, then please shoot me an email at shane.hartley@cru.org, and we would love to help you connect with Cru staff, Cru students, and even Christian professors in places you're going to. So Dorinda and I are going to Sweden this summer with some students, and I can't wait to meet with some of the professors there at Uppsala University. I don't know if any of them are Christian, but I just think God has to have some, and we're also going to meet with a church there and the Christian students in Uppsala. So I know a lot of you travel. Let me know if you'd be interested in connecting with some Christians with wherever you go. And so welcome everyone as you're coming in. It's good to have you. And if it's convenient, go on your name. And if you can rename yourself, you'll click on the box where your name is in the top right, 3 dots, and keep your full name. But then also if you'll include your university there. So that would be great to see. So we're going to open a time in a devotional real quick, 2 Chronicles, and then we're going to hear from Twyla. So if you don't have your Bible with you, that's fine. I'm going to share with you my screen. And one thing that we've all probably experienced this before is, have you seen like when there's a business that starts off great and then it just fails miserably in the end, or athletic teams have been that way? Maybe it's coming out in your school in the NCAA had started so well, then didn't do well. And those things always challenge me to think about, how am I going to end well? Maybe I've started well in a relationship with Jesus. How will I end? And so I want to remind us, and for some of us, maybe telling you the first time of this story of King Asa. So I put some of the Bible verses here. 2 Chronicles 14:2. This is part of a long list, of kings in the northern kingdom and southern kingdom, that some were good, some were bad. And in this case, it says, and Asa did what was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. So King Asa was a king in the southern kingdom, which is also called Judah a lot of times. And so here's one example. This is a story, I'm sure amongst many, that showed how Asa had trusted in the Lord. In chapter 14, 9 through 12, it says, Zerah the Ethiopian came out against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots, and came as far as Mareshah. And Asa went out to meet him, and they drew up their lines of battle in the valley of Zephathah at Mareshah. And it says in verse 11, Asa cried to the Lord his God, O Lord, there is none like you.
And I also have my email there, Chris.
In the week.
Yes.
So if everyone will mute your microphone.
Thank you.
I should have done that on my end, sorry.
Thank you.
At verse 11, Asa cried to the Lord, O Lord, there's none like you between the mighty and the weak. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rely on you. And in your name we have come against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Let not man prevail against you. So the Lord defeated the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. So I just underlined some things there that encouraged me, ways that Asa depended. It says in verse 11, he cried to the Lord that there was none like him. He's crying help to God, that he relies on him. And it was in God's name that he was coming against them. And so God gave them a great victory. And if you keep reading chapter 15, you see Asa doing great reforms within the nation. And then chapter 16 jumps to the end of his life. So look here, verses 1 and 2. In the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah and built Ramah, that he might permit no one to go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. So this is King Baasha in the northern kingdom in Israel. And Ramah, he's starting to build this fortified city. It's only 6 miles from Jerusalem, the heart of the southern kingdom. And in verse 2, it says, then King Asa took silver and gold from the treasures of the house of the Lord and the king's house, and sent them to Ben-Hadad, the king of Syria. I wrote a note there, this is our enemy. This is Israel's enemy. And he sent this money, he lived in Damascus. And so Asa pays this king Ben-Hadad, and Ben-Hadad comes down and defeats the king Baasha for the sake of King Asa. So it looks like a victory. I mean, it looks like God has provided again for King Asa here. But then it all ends with 2 Chronicles 16. At that time, Hanani the seer, another word for prophet, came to Asa, the king of Judah, and said to him, because you relied on the king of Syria and did not rely on the Lord your God, the army of the king of Syria has escaped you. That means your enemy has now escaped you. You won't be able to defeat him in the future. And then verse 8, were not the Ethiopians and the Libyans a huge army with many chariots and horsemen? Yet because you relied on the Lord, he gave them into your hand. In other words, don't you remember? Don't you remember how you cried out to me? And the Lord, I gave them into your hand. And then verse 9, a popular verse, for the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless towards him. So one encouragement I see here is just the importance of remembering. You see throughout the Old Testament that the Israelites are always told to remember the Exodus, especially. Remember how the Lord brought you out of Egypt. And I think it's a great reminder to always think how I can remember God working in my life in the past. And so feel free in the chat here to put something in there that you remember how God came through for you in the past. It doesn't have to be a long description or cut out of your journal, but a few words even of how have you seen God come through in your past. And the Bible often says just reflecting on how he's come through in the past can build our faith for the future. But an even more powerful way of remembering the past is remembering Jesus and what he did. And so especially at this time of Easter, we're reminded to look back at the resurrection and how important that was. And Romans 8:32, whenever I'm anxious, should be the best reminder that the cross tells me God's love. It says in 8:32, he who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things? And so a lot of times the signals that'll come up for me can be anxiety. It could be anger. I have feelings come up that can be signals of these things. And on your own, I'll let you read the rest of this story of Asa, because when he gets confronted, he doesn't end well. He gets angry at the Lord. He actually is the first one recorded who puts a prophet in prison. And so such a strong reminder that in order to end well, I need to depend fully on the Lord. And part of that is remembering him continually, remembering what he's done. So thanks for those who put some things in the chat, answers to prayer. I see the privilege even of seeing your children come to Christ. That's great, Jeff. Yeah, Misty talked about prayer, and so did Dave. Yeah, I think all of us, keeping a prayer journal is something my mom encouraged me to do when I was like 11 years old. And there are some things I can look back and see how God provided. Normally it was just things like I'd play well at a basketball game, or that we'd get to go in when we got off the bus because it was snowing outside. So, but it's cool to have little reminders, things like that. So yeah, thanks, Lisa. The job you have at Piedmont, that's awesome. But there, I think all of us can look at our jobs and see God's hand at some point in the past there. So this Easter, yeah, let's reflect well on what God has done, and especially what he's done with Jesus on the cross and in his resurrection. And so I am so excited to introduce to you now a dear friend, Twyla Davis, who is at Bladen Community College. And I didn't invite Twyla to come speak because she has done everything perfectly in her life. You need to do everything the same. The ministry that she's done. The two reasons I've invited Twyla to come speak is, one, she loves the Lord with all her heart. And secondly, I have seen her have such a heart of ministry for others. I've joined her on a few faculty prayer times where she has led. And I thought, oh my goodness, like she could be a professional minister. Just her heart is coming out so real. So it's such a treat. Twyla, thank you for joining us. And to the group, I invite you to throw questions in the chat at any time during her presentation, and I will look at those. And at the end, I'll try to choose several of them that we can ask Twyla. So I've asked Twyla to come and present to us some of her experience with student ministry on her campus, but also faculty ministry. Since 2009, she has had a lot of experience. And so if this raises any questions, just throw it in the chat. And with no further ado, we turn it to you, Twyla.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. Wow. It is such a privilege to be able to come and talk with you guys. I've just, ever since I was asked, I'm like, what do I say? What do I do? What do I say? And this passage this morning, just Shane said, remember what God has done for you. And that is everything I've done since he asked me to come and speak. It has just been a time of reflection for me to look back over the years of campus ministry here at BCC, and just how faithful God has done and how he has put people in place and brought things together. So I have to start with that. Anything that I share, all the glory goes to him. He's done amazing things. He's provided resources. He's brought people together. He's kept people away. Whatever needed to be done, he has done that. So everything goes to his glory today, not me, not the school, but it's all about him. Just to give you a little bit of background for those that may not know the college, we are Bladen Community College in Bladen County. For geographical reference, you could put us about halfway between Fayetteville and Wilmington, about 45 minutes east of Fayetteville, about an hour and 10 west of Wilmington. Among the realms of community colleges, we are among the smaller ones, 1,100 to 1,200 enrollment per semester. Very small town, little town called Dublin. You can drive through it in 3 minutes, traffic or no traffic. It doesn't take long. So we're rural, we're farmland. A lot of our folks are living at poverty, maybe a little bit before level. So we have a lot of needs with our students. But we love our students. Our motto is that we are student-centered and future-focused, and we try to do that in every aspect that we can. For myself, I've been here for about 20 years. Before that, I spent 13 years in public schools as a high school English teacher. Had the awesome privilege to work with a very enthusiastic student and his pastor and bring Fellowship of Christian Athletes to Bladen County schools. So I did that during my high school time. And so that heart for student ministry just kind of carried over when I came to BCC. So I was thinking, I'm kind of trying to gather my thoughts. I want to be able to give information that that you can use, but I want to give a little testimony too. So I'm like, how do I incorporate this? So the Lord just popped in during my quiet time today and totally restructured my my talk. So I hope this is going to be the most beneficial way to share information with you and give you some things that we could use. Some of you may be interested in starting student ministry or growing what you have. So let me just give you a little bit about how we got started. It is a God story for sure. We attempted to start some type of Christian organization on our campus about 2004, 2005, somewhere in that time. To make the story short, we didn't have the support we needed. We didn't have support from our administration. I reached out to some Christian organizations. I didn't get response in terms of somebody to come and help us. And I was working with our VP over student services because he managed the student clubs and organizations. And I said, time is not right. I'm a full believer in God's timing. He makes me wait when I don't want to wait sometimes, but his timing comes through. So I said, let's wait on his timing. Let's pray about it and let's see what happens. So if you fast forward about 5 years, about 2009, I was in my office one day and Vice President of Student Services popped at the door with a big old grin on his face. Had a young man with him. He said, Miss Davis, he said, this is Daniel. He wants to know if we ever thought about starting Campus Crusade for Christ at our school. And that's who we had tried to reach out to before and had not made a connection. And Daniel was driving from Raleigh to UNC Pembroke to see his Campus Crusade people there. If you know anything about the territory, you do not come through Bladen County to get to from Raleigh to UNCP. That's not the route. He had a friend who was a music minister at a church in Dublin, and he wanted to stop by and visit his friend on the way to UNCP. And while he was passing through Little Dublin, he saw the sign, Bladen Community College, and he was like, wonder if they would like to start a chapter. At that time, our campus was not visitor friendly. We did not have signs and posters. You were on your own when you tried to figure out where anything was on campus. He walked into the first building he came to and the first office that he got to, and it was the Vice President of Student Services. And he introduced himself and said, are you interested? And he brought him directly to me. And as they say, the rest is history. Daniel worked with us to establish a Campus Crusade for Christ mission here at BCC, got us started having group meetings. He came and led some of the meetings for us, connected me to some resources. And so that's kind of been our connection since then. We were with them when they changed their name to Cru. And we did not take on the full name of Cru. We call ourselves Campus Ministries because we haven't always been able to make ourselves look like the Cru organization. I had trouble getting student leaders to attend their trainings and different stuff like that. So they've been a great resource for us and a great connection, but at times we've been able to work closer with them than in others. So that's one thing I would say if you're trying to get started is to connect with a larger organization, both because you have that guidance of how can I bring this to my campus under the guidelines of making sure I'm not, stepping over any boundaries or breaking any guidelines or anything like that. They can guide you that way. Plus, they can provide you good resources. They can provide you people that will come and work with you, materials that you need. We got a lot of studies and Bible studies off of their website whenever we were teaching, meeting with the students. So it's always good to have a good connection if it's Cru or if God leads you to another one. That's always good to have that larger connection when you're trying to get started and trying to build. We work primarily with our students around the basic outline is with weekly meetings. Sometimes those went better than others, but that was just kind of our foundation of student ministry. We would try to provide a weekly meeting for the students. You need food. Okay, you got to bring students in with food. As a small campus, we don't have a cafeteria. Our students have to either bring their lunch or get a vending machine. And so one day a week when somebody's going to bring in a meal is a good attention getter. So we would try to provide some type of lunch, pizza, grab some burgers from the grill, tacos from Taco Bell, whatever we could get hold of. Sandwich trays, so they make sandwiches, something quick and easy. And then we would have a time of study with them. Might be a Bible study, a devotional. We might go through a series of studies. We use some of the crew materials that provided, 6 or 7 weeks of a continuous study that we could go through with the students. And that's been our basic foundation. And, we've had everything from days that we went and nobody showed up to days that we had 25 to 30 students. You never know what you were going to have. And you just go in faith that you'd be ready for whatever would come in. And that's kind of the nature of the community college. They are commuters. They come to class, they come to school to take their class, and then they leave. So it's hard to find sometimes a pocket of students who will stay around for anything extra. And if you're on a university campus and they live in dorms, and this is where they live, you have larger pockets of time where you can pull students together. They're looking for something to do. But one of the challenges at the community college level is that they don't come to stay on campus. They want to get their classes and go to work or wherever else they need to go. So that kind of determined the size of our groups and that type of thing as well. Another thing I would encourage you to do when you're building your group is to look for community support. We had a couple of years, I don't know if they had been to a conference and somebody put a bug in their ear or not, but I had a summer where every church around us called me and said, we just realized we've got a campus at our back door. Surely there are students there who need something. Can we help? And like I said, they kind of all did that at one time. And so I called all the pastors together. We had a meeting. I said, what did you have in mind? How do you want to help us? And they're like, what do you need? And for that couple of years, I had pastors who would come in and lead my groups. All I had to do was organize, bring in the food, make sure that the time and the place, and they would come in and they would either use the materials that I provided them or do a devotion as the Lord led them. But I had like 4 pastors at one time, and they just rotated. One did week 1, one did week 2, one did week 3, and they came in and led the groups for me. So that was one resource that we've had along the way. It wasn't continuous. It was only like a couple of years, and pastors are busy. They have funerals come up. They have people in the hospital they have to go visit, and so some of them slowly just kind of step back from that. But the Lord always provides. Right after that, I had a couple of pastors in the community who just kind of adopted us and said, I'll be your volunteer chaplain. Whatever resources we can provide, whatever I can help you with, let me know. And so we had a Methodist pastor who worked with us for about 2 years. He led my groups. Anytime we had an event, he was just there for the support and just that presence. And he was with me for a while. And then he left his church, left the community, and I had a Baptist minister who came in. He was actually a professor at Carolina Bible College and had a real heart for college students. And so he helped me for a couple of years. So as Shane said in the email that he sent out, it's been different. Our group ministry has been different, and it's I don't know that any 2 years have been exactly alike, but the Lord has been faithful in providing whatever we needed. We had 1 year where I could not get the student groups to work at all. It was just continuously, I had a speaker, I had food, I had time, and nobody was showing up. I mean, weeks in a row with nobody. And I'm like, man, what in the world? And the Lord just said, this isn't what the campus needs this year. I want you to do something different. And so we went campus wide with our ministry. Like I said, we don't have a cafeteria. So once a month, we would feed the whole campus. We had a hot dog lunch one month. We had pizza one month. We had soup and sandwiches one month. But we had something campus wide. Now, how did we do that? Our churches helped. A different church adopted each month, and that church provided the food. And they even sent volunteers to help serve. So that particular year was just a great year of just reaching out to the whole campus, letting them know, that we were even there, that we had this ministry, that we had people who wanted to reach out to them and support them. And that was a really good year for that. But it was all in the timing. That was just what our campus needed. It created unity among our faculty and staff because they wanted to help too. I put when we were doing the hot dog lunch, the church was bringing the grills out. If you want to draw students in, crank up a grill on campus. Okay. So they brought their grills in, they cooked hot dogs, and I needed drinks and chips to go with it. So I sent out a sign out sheet to my faculty. I said, I need this many cases of drinks and this many bags of chips, and I need it by Friday. And Friday, my office was full. So faculty and staff would come in and help with those kind of things like that as well. So it's been there. When we needed it, it was there. So those are the two biggest ways that we've done ministry here on the campus. A couple of other things that we've tried, and sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. Our two chaplains who wanted to kind of help me for a little while, they volunteered to be on campus a couple of days a week for a couple of hours in case the students just wanted somebody to talk to. That didn't draw in a lot of students. And again, I don't know if it's the commuting, they just weren't here, if we didn't get the word out well enough. But we reached a couple of students in that time, and everyone is important, but that wasn't something that we kept going. There wasn't enough feedback and enough activity with that to continue that. But we tried that, and we did try a big group night. My son went to graduated from NC State, and he was in crew at State, and he went through each of the levels that the fully organized crew had. He attended the Bible studies there in his dorm. He did a one-on-one discipleship training with one of the leaders, and he was discipled. And then he, in turn, became a Bible study leader, and he discipled one-on-one other students. But they would have their small group meetings in their dorm. And then I think one night a week, they would have their big meeting off campus at one of the local churches, and all the students would get together, and they'd have singing and fellowship and a speaker. And then afterwards they play games. And he used to tell me, I used to call him on Thursday night. He's like, Mom, I'm at Bojangles, because after crew, they hit Bojangles, that poor Bojangles, but that's where we would be. So we tried something like that here one time. We had a band come in and play did a few songs, and then we had a speaker, and we served Domino's pizza. And again, the nature of our community and the nature of the student, we just didn't have the audience. We had students who were here for nighttime classes, came and grabbed a piece of pizza and left. People came and listened to the band, but left and didn't listen to the speaker. And so we tried it. And another day and another time, it might have a different result. It was good. It was a good event, but not something that looked like we could consistently do. So sometimes you just have to be creative and just try what you're thinking about and just see what happens, see what God does with it and what he shows you and what he teaches with it. But the biggest thing that it's done, and what has always been my heart in having a student group, is just to let students see that they're not alone, to see that there are other believers on their campus, so they can make that connection through their faith and be there to support each other, and to know who they can go to when they need support. A couple of meaningful things that happened with me during this time. I am, and I will own this up, I am an 8:05 person. It doesn't matter how hard I try. I'm going to be 5 minutes late wherever. You're lucky I was here at 9:15. It's just me. But I got to work early one morning for some reason. I was here really early. And when I got here, I was about 15 or 20 minutes earlier than usual. And there was a student sitting in the lobby outside my office. And I said hello, and I came on into my office, and she followed me. And I turned around and she was there, and she was not one of my students. I had only seen her once or twice on campus. But she knew that I helped with the campus ministries. And she said, "You're Miss Davis, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You do the Christian group thing." I was like, "Yeah, that's what you want to call it." And she said, "I'm on my way to the doctor, and I'm very, very nervous about this appointment. Will you please pray with me before I go to the doctor?" And so we prayed. We had that prayer time. She was pregnant and she was very worried. She'd had miscarriages before, and she was just very anxious and very worried about how this was going to go. And I'll be honest with you, she didn't come back to me. I don't know how it turned out, but I know I needed to be there for her, and she needed to know that she had somebody to come to that she could pray with. And so she came and prayed with me there. And some of the meetings that we had during the week, when maybe only one or two students showed up, that one student just needed somebody to really talk with and pour their heart out to. And that one student was important, and we were there for them and able to minister with them. And we had one girl, this was a cute story. She was always late. We would have our meetings from like 12 to 12:45, and she 12:30, here she come, but she had just got out of class. And we made a comment one day about, always glad you're here, even though you can't get here. And she said, "I always have to come get my nugget. I have to come and get my nugget of the word. I have to get my nugget in prayer." So she always came every week to get her little nugget. So you never know. You never know what impact and what impression and what opportunity you're given to these students. And in terms of the meals, when we would do campus-wide meals, we have students, and I'm sure all of you do, but we have students who get up in the morning and they have to make a decision. Am I going to use this money I have to put gas in my car and go to school, or am I going to use this money to get me something to eat today? And when we would have those campus-wide lunches, they didn't have to worry about eating that day. They could come and they had something to eat. And we would try to do that for night students. We have students who would get off of work and come straight to class. And so we would try to have sandwiches or snacks or something for our evening students from time to time, just to give them that little support as well. So, I just encourage you to pray for God to show you where the needs are, and what he wants you to do, and how you can serve him there. And real quickly, I'm trying not to, I'm using up a lot of time here. With the faculty and staff part, we started out as one group, faculty, staff, and students. And of course, obviously, as we learned, it's better to have separate ones. The students are going to talk more openly and freely if it's just students, and same thing with faculty and staff. So we tried different things with our faculty staff, and the most successful year that we had, we met every other week. Weekly was too much. Once a month, they'd forget, it'd get away from them. So every other week, bringing food works well for faculty and staff as well, because it was kind of like, do I go eat lunch or do I go to this faculty and staff meeting? So we would provide food for them also. And the one year that was just extremely successful, we had sign-up sheets, and the faculty, we had 2 or 3 would get together and they would provide lunch, whether they cooked something, a crock pot meal and brought it in, or if they ran down to the deli and picked up boxes, whatever they wanted to do, they would bring in lunch. And then I had a sign-up sheet for someone to do the devotion. And the faculty and staff members actually took turns doing our devotion. Our meetings only lasted about 30 minutes because of, that's the lunch break for some of them, and that's the amount of time that they could spare. So we would, get our food, and while we were eating, kind of like a lunch and learn type thing, while we were eating, we would have the devotion, and then we would have the prayer time. And we have about 45 to 50 people on our faculty, maybe just somewhere around 100 people on faculty and staff together. And that particular year, we had up to 25 or more people coming to our faculty and staff lunches. And so that was a pretty big percentage to be able to come and do that. But they were always, like I said earlier, they were always, what can we do to support you? So they would take turns and had one semester faculty and staff taught my student groups. I was telling them I need somebody to come in and help me do devotions. And one of the teachers said, well, it's like teaching Sunday school, right? I said, well, pretty much. He said, we all teach Sunday school. We can go do a lesson. So I did a sign up sheet and had a different faculty member come and teach the student, lead the student group at a time. And like I said, they would bring in food when we would have campus events and just anything that they could do to help. They would always do that. But that twice a month lunch meeting was really productive and really meaningful. Of course, COVID hit, shut down a lot of things. And so now we do Friday morning Zoom meetings around 9 o'clock. And I have 8 to 15 who will log in on Friday mornings, and we have our meetings and our prayer time. So real quick, that's just some of the highlights of what we've done. God has blessed us in so many ways, just put things together. He's kept me going. I will confess there's times I've been discouraged with lack of participation or the challenge of trying to get anything done, or sometimes feeling like I was doing everything myself. And he pushed me through, and he was faithful. So I had to be faithful as well. And he would always just blow me away. Here I go trudging across campus with my basket full of Debbie cakes to the meeting, wonder if anybody's going to show up. And I'd get there and he would just, it would be a big group and they'd be all happy and bubbly. And he'd just put me back in my place where I needed to be. So I'm going to stop there. I could go on, but thank you for letting me share those things. And I'll be glad to answer a question if I need to, or just turn it back over to you, Shane, and let you lead it the way you want to.
Thank you. That was so good. And everyone, feel free to put any questions or thoughts you have in the chat here. And Twyla, so you teach in the Department of English. You're faculty with the English department, right?
I am now. I started out as a developmental reading instructor. Okay. I switched over to institutional effectiveness and was director of IE for about 6 years. And then I went back to the classroom. So I'm back in English.
How many classes would you be teaching on average per semester?
This semester I have 7.
Okay.
So.
And so
18 to 21 hours is our current load.
Really?
Yeah.
How hard did it get for you sometimes with your schedule to also be trying to maintain a student ministry and the faculty ministry, faculty gatherings?
That did get challenging. Now, when I was in director of IE, that's administrative. I was in the office. My schedule was a little more flexible, but trying to do it while teaching, I've had trouble getting started back. I've been back in the classroom since fall of 2019. And my schedule has put my classes right around lunch. So we've not gotten kicked back up very well. I did have a student who came to me and said, I was on the website and saw we had this campus ministry groups. What is this about? That was the closest to a student leader I ever came. He took over, he set up the meetings, he was leading devotions. I was setting time and bringing snacks and stuff like that. That was fall of 2019. We came back spring of 2020, ready to get started, and COVID hit and shut us down. So that's the last face-to-face student ministry that we've done. It was tough. And during the time I was trying to do both, I did ask a team of faculty and staff to kind of run those meetings for me once we got everybody signed up and knew who was going to be bringing food and who was going to be bringing who doing the devotion. I was like, can you just send the email for me and make sure lunch is set up and just kind of do that for me. And I did have a team that did that for me for about a year. And so once it got rolling, you need to kind of pull that help in as much as you can. And then that way I was able to focus on the students, and I knew they were taking care of the faculty part.
It's great. It's great. Thank you. So yeah, I see one question from Daniel to everybody. So Debbie Cakes, I'm there. Yeah, I was thinking that, Daniel, when I heard nuggets, like, oh, you're giving out golden nuggets or chicken nuggets, I'll go there for you. Oh, Bible nuggets, I'd still come for that. So yeah, he just says, thank you for your testimony. I'm involved with several student organizations on our campus, and your experiences are helpful and encouraging. So that's great. Thank you. And Christine, thanks for your thanks there.
And a shout out to my BCC people who joined me today. I didn't mention them earlier, but there's several that's here, and I appreciate their support. And a couple are a Robinson person, maybe from back in the day. So it's good to see. Good for them that I have support. And I just thank the Lord for that.
Wow. So good. Twyla, thank you. This was golden, and just so inspired by your years of faithfulness. And you were like a full-time campus minister, coming with food supplies, walking to a ministry, and don't know if anyone's going to show up. And so I think all of us know in some way what it's like to take steps of faith, and how faithful he is to come through there. So
yeah, he is.
So I wanted to open it up to the group briefly of have any of you had any experiences of seeing God work to either start a student ministry, start a faculty ministry, or even something on your heart that God's put there about starting a ministry to students or faculty?
I'll jump in. I so enjoyed the story, and parts of it are the same. When I started teaching high school, there was no FCA group, and I really wanted to start one, and kind of had to wait for the Supreme Court to say it was okay. That's how long ago this was. But I was like, it was a high school in Charlotte, and so I put the announcements on. Anybody interested, come to my room. And it was the end of the day, and I went, I probably should get information from the kids, their names and contact information. And so I quickly typed up a info sheet, and I ran. Right school was out down at the copier, and I had to push a button on how many copies I wanted. And I thought, oh gosh, if I had 10 kids, well, maybe if I had 15, I'll hit 15. And so they printed off, went back to my room, and I walked in my room. In my room, there were kids on counters, on the floor, in their seats. There was about 45 or 50, and eventually we ended up having about 100. But I stopped in the room and at the door and almost cried, because I underestimated what God can do again. And as you started, Twyla, it's not about us, it's about God. And so we did the same thing at Winthrop. We didn't have an FCA group, and I started that and underestimated again. So it's a great lesson. And I put in the chat, we've all been there with, when I've worked with crew, we'd have 5 one week and 20 the next. And then, so, but you just got to keep going. So I appreciate your faithfulness.
Great. Well, thank you, Dave. Thanks for sharing that also. Well, it's so great to be with everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll bring it to a close. And I'm encouraged in my faith through this. Hope you all have a great weekend, and especially a great Easter coming up. If any of you want to hang on after the chat, we're going to chat some about some practicals in and outs of launching ministries for faculty or for students. But we're finished other than that. So blessings to you, and thanks for being with us. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shane.
Thanks again, Twyla.
Yeah, Twyla, that was great.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Twyla.